Teach us how to beat people up. Yeah!
Martial arts was not developed to hurt others.
We did not sign up for a geeky karate class.
Well, there is your first mistake, because this has nothing to do with geekiness and everything to do with dorkiness. Case in point, welcome to the Fortress of Dorkness, the nerdy nexus for all your geeky needs. I'm your host, Chris John Schmidt. Wait, why am I always the villain? Guess what, viewers? It's the 100th official episode of The Fort. I, for one, feel accomplished, except that the lunch PA is still here, clearly not reinforcing the walls of said fort from the invading kitties as a special treat. Because we love giving treats, for returning and new viewers, we have a double-sized episode, because comics. So join us on Hidden Treasures as we begin a long journey in chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's right, it's 2011's Captain America, the First Avenger. Please note, viewers, overflowingly gooey as this episode may be, we still can't cover every detail in the film. So, we're going with a mixture of Easter eggs only related to Cap 1 and our own favorites.
Shall I give the order? It has been given.
As the legend of Cap goes, he was a World War II soldier frozen in ice whose metabolism kept him alive. Well, yeah, when he's drawn to have bigger chesticles than the Blob, of course he's gonna survive an ice age. Thanks, Rob Liefeld. The movie stays true to this origin, except it was the Avengers who found Captain Rogers in the North Atlantic, not S.H.I.E.L.D. I guess that makes Hank Pym the real First Avenger.
Yes, I'm still alive.
Interestingly, a deleted scene from 2008's The Incredible Hulk shows Cap's shield frozen in ice, but on the Arctic tundra, not in the Hydra aircraft. I guess that's why it's deleted, but one could argue the earth-shatteringness of the sequence was intended to dislodge the capsicled vehicle. But that's simply maybe asking too much.
It's simply asking too much.
We end up in Tonsberg, Norway, which might be familiar to fans of 2011's Thor, as this is where the frost giants invaded centuries ago, and where Odin held his great battle with them. Thus, this explains why Tonsberg has a connection to the Asgardians. Thor himself is illustrated later in a book being detained by the Red Skull. I'm sure that guy doesn't pay any library fees.
Evidently not.
A connection to Steven Spielberg happens for the umpteenth time on Hidden Treasures as Red Skull grumbles to Lord Filch the Trakian. This is a reference to the plot of the Indiana Jones film Raiders of the Lost Ark. Director Joe Johnston can relate, as he worked as a visual effects art director at ILM on Raiders. Steve Rogers' birthday of July 4th, 1918, besides being the 142nd Independence Day of the United States, was also the day of the Battle of Hamel, a successful operation against the Germans involving US, Australian, and British forces during World War I. But this is World War II, verified by the newsreel Rogers is watching. However, the march heard over the reel comes from 1952's The Bad and the Beautiful. So I guess that movie is a reel out of time, just like Cap. Steve lifting the rounded garbage can lid is a motif that would carry through into his career as Avenging Captain. Another variant of this motif would be seen later, as Cap uses the Lucky Star cab door as a line of defense.
With your powers combined,
they are painted can lids for street urchin kiddies. The shield is an important part of Cap's iconic silhouette, and ironically maybe indirectly influential in Howard Stark, Peggy Carter, and No Country for Tommy Lee converting the SSR into S.H.I.E.L.D. We mentioned Thor, but how about a little Iron Man 2? The precursor to the Stark Expo in Iron Man 2 can be seen early in this film with the World Expo of Tomorrow, of which Stark was a sponsor. What you may not have noticed about the Expo is a little love intended towards the early days of Marvel Comics. Other than the obvious Modern Marvels building, an exhibit showcases Marvel's most popular hero during World War II. Their second superhero, an android and the base body used to create Vision in the comics, Jim Hammond, the original Human Torch. Yes, Namor came first. Deal with it.
that's gross.
This is also ironic, since Chris Evans played the modern Human Torch, Johnny Storm, in 2 Fantastic Four films.
Sweet!
His moves as Johnny may have been smooth.
Care to join me?
But Steve Rogers is no ladies' man.
I guess I just don't know why you'd want to join the army if you were a beautiful dame. Or a woman. An agent, not a dame. You are beautiful, but...
You have no idea how to talk to a woman, do you?
Considering the amount of pre-breakout fame beauties featured in this film, Cap needs to up his game. Jenna Coleman of Doctor Who, Natalie Dormer of Game of Thrones, and Laura Haddock of Guardians of the Galaxy all appear in this film. Wait, could this scene imply that Cap is Star-Lord's grandfather? Another pre-fame beauty is Thorin Oakenshield himself. Richard Armitage as Heinz Kruger, the Hydra agent who kills Erskine. In the comics, Kruger was not a member of Hydra, but a Gestapo for the Nazi Party. As for Abraham Erskine, hey, it's Stanley Tucci!
No, wait, what I am doing. No, you have a procedure tomorrow. No fluids.
Alright, we'll drink it after.
No, I don't have a procedure tomorrow. Drink it after, drink it now.
Anyway, Erskine used the alias Joseph Reinstein in the comics to hide from Hitler and Baron Zemo. He doesn't use it in the film, but keen-eyed viewers may notice his name in The Incredible Hulk on the Stark Industries cryo-sink chamber. Erskine's super soldier formula would go on to have multiple attempted replications, indirectly becoming the grandfather to the Hulk, Abomination, Wolverine, Deadpool, Star-Lord.
You don't give up, do you?
And in the MCU, Project Centipede.
Wow, you really get around.
This is the result of the samples of Steve's blood taken here, one vial which would become the plot point in ABC's 2015 spin-off, Agent Carter. This is why we love the Tooch.
I'm talking to giants of them.
But not as much as we love the Red Skull's ridiculously secret villainous lair, where he and Arnim Zola spend the majority of their time.
Where's Dr. Evil hiding?
Damn! 3 times. He is hiding in the secret volcano lair.
At least it's not the coat rack headquarters from the original Cat movie. Zola's expanded face seen on this screen is a nice little homage to his comic incarnation, where he is basically a robotic suit with a TV in his belly. You can catch a glimpse of the blueprint for the suit later in the film, though Kevin Feige would find another way to bring the look to life in the next movie. Is it just me, or does Zola always seem unhappy? If you work for a guy with a Red Skull for a face, you would be too. Of course, he wouldn't call him that to his Crimson Dome, which is why the moniker is simply name-dropped by these Nazis, who are counted off.
The Führer feels, how does he put it? The Red Skull has been indulged long enough.
I guess his personality was too similar to Hitler for them, considering both Skull and Hitler share a love for Wagner.
Masterpiece.
Bringing the Thorbacks full circle, Wagner famously composed the tale of the... Are you seriously making me say this name again? We had enough of that in Siegfried.
You are failing!
Ugh. Fine. The Tale of the Nibelung. I hope you're happy, you son of a bitch. A story about Odin and his Valkyrie bring us right back to Asgard. Skull tops off his Asgardian mania by mentioning...
And I suppose you still aim to win this war through magic?
Science, but I understand your confusion.
Something that would cement the bond in the first Thor film between Hemsthor and Natalie Portman. Wow, she comes up almost as much as Steven. Over in the land of spangly stars, Catmania was spreading like super soldier serum in Rogers' veins. The Captain America comic, seen selling like hotcakes, is a replica of the first issue of Captain America comics from March 1941. The love for Cap didn't stop there, as later a poster featuring him can be seen in Europe, which would later become a well-known trading card. As I recall, there's a collector out there who had a copy of one. The first skin-tight patriotic cosplay used for his commercial career may be the closest to a comic-accurate Cap in the MCU, minus the dragon skin chainmail. The wedge-shaped shield is also taken from the aforementioned Cap, issue number 1. Later in the film, Cap would switch to a more modified tactical military suit, a homage to the Ultimates line of comics. He also switches to his far more iconic rounded shield, which was first seen in Captain America Comics number 2, because Marvel didn't want to confuse people with the shield. The shield itself is made out of vibranium, an alloy that will become important to someone in 2015 and to Mr. Tittles in 2016.
What?
Shoo! Get away from the fort! MCU changes in wardrobe would become a reoccurring trend, almost as interchangeable as Bucky's memories. Bucky Barnes is shown to be part of the Howling Commandos, though in the comics during World War II, Bucky himself was a teenage boy. More Robin to Cap's Batman. The comic versions of the Commandos premiered in 1963's Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. Yes, that's Fury, as in Nicholas J. A serum called the Infinity Formula, something Thanos isn't looking for, kept him youthful all these years, but really he's just as old as Cap. Thus far, he's not a member of the Commandos in the MCU. Let's run down the movie versions, shall we?
That's very wise.
The most important is Dum Dum Dugan, who would replace Cap as the head of the Commandos in the MCU following his death. He was a member of the original Howling Commandos and Nick Fury's BFF, who would later survive to enter the modern age when Fury would keep shifting his consciousness between life model decoys over the years. Gabe Jones, also a member of the comic Commandos, would become the ancestor of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Trip in ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Jim Morita was a late addition to the group in the comics, and his identical movie ancestor would go on to become a high school principal. Montgomery Falsworth and Jacques Dernier were not comic commandos. Dernier was a French resistance member who would occasionally aid the team. Falsworth was the hero Union Jack, a nickname Dum Dum gives Peggy Carter in her TV series.
Miss Union Jack. What do you think, fellas?
Peggy may work for the red, white, and blue on both sides of the Atlantic, but her red dress was actually made and unused for another World War II film, Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, God, I'm sozzled. One last nip.
Though Cap and Bucky were not part of the Howling unit, Bucky would eventually come into his own, becoming some kind of frost snow soldier as a result of years of brainwashing. Though more on that as we progress through these films. An early sign of this can be seen as Bucky is strapped to an interrogation table, repeating his name and unit. Further foreshadowing comes in the form of Bucky lifting Cap's shield, something that happens once in each film. It subtly homages when Buchanan took over the mantle of Captain America in the comics after Rogers' death in Civil War.
I can do this all day. Oh, of course you can, of course. But unfortunately, I am on a tight schedule.
What did he say?
Dracula!
Dracula! Dracula!
Scheduled?
Cap would have a similar reoccurring motif with his shield as he drops it once in every film. As the film comes to a close, Skull lifts the Tesseract, and we get an iconic image of Schmidt holding a cosmic cube from the comics. Skull then disapparates into space, but not in the Harry Potter fashion. Whether it was intended at this time or not, it is just another example of how mortal hands cannot hold an Infinity Stone. Oh yeah, did we mention the Tesseract is an Infinity Stone? But only in the films. Its comic counterpart would be the Space Gem. As in the comics, cosmic cubes are powerful objects that can manipulate matter and energy. They are basically genies, as they can alter reality to grant the wishes of their controller.
Phenomenal cosmic power!
Itty bitty living space.
And finally, the obligatory Stanmio. The obligatory Stanmio of the film sees the man as an army general underwhelmed by her titular captain.
I thought he'd be taller. You save me any of that schnapps?
Not as much as I should have. Sorry.
What Kevin Feige and the team at Marvel Studios undertook was a massive endeavor. Somehow, they managed to cram 70 years of history into these films. And we haven't even scratched the surface in this list alone.
That's the guy my dad never shut up about. Wondering if they shouldn't have kept him on ice.
That's all we have for today. Crash your comments into the Arctic Circle. I'm sure Nick Fury will unthaw it eventually. Please like, subscribe, and follow us behind enemy lines. We have some Howling Commandos to liberate. This has been Hidden Treasures. I'm Christian Villarreal, and you've been watching the 100th episode of The Fortress of Dorkness.